Today is 18th October 1942. I am sitting on a bale of straw in a railway goods wagon, part of a troop transport. So far as the rattling and shaking allows, I am making the very first entries in my brand new notebook. About 3 hours ago, we boarded this train. We being about 300 freshly trained 18-year-old recruits, along with some Gefreiter, Obergefreiter, and Unteroffizier. Finally, we have a little time to ourselves. The last 3 days have been extremely hectic. On our way to the front, we were first rushed through preliminary training at the Stalingrad Center in East Prussia. Yesterday, the commander of the training battalion at Insterburg gave us a rousing speech about our contribution to the operation in Russia. For us, this was a great moment, to have finally graduated and now be considered fully fledged frontline soldiers. The commander's speech made us all feel extremely proud. He had spoken about the German army's far-flung commitments and its many successes, and about the mission that we were about to undertake on behalf of our Führer and our beloved fatherland. We were to accomplish this with all the strength and military prowess we could possibly muster. Our attitude was first-rate, not least because our daily suffering had also ended. The 6 months of training often involved a pretty harsh routine, and as a result, many of us won't forget it in a hurry. But that's now all in the past. We look forward to a new era, a great future. Immediately after the commander's send-off, we exited the Insterburg camp through the main gates and headed straight for the railway station. Our marching songs never sounded as cheerful and confident as they did this sunny autumn morning. The Stalag Troop Training Center is well known to old soldiers as a place where harsh military training is meted out. It now serves as a transit area for replacement troops destined for the front lines. No one knows which front line we are being sent to, as this sort of information is classified. We were loaded into these wagons with 3 days' combat rations. Ever since then, the main question has been, what is our destination? The only person who might know is the Obergefreiter with the Iron Cross Second Class and the wound badge. He's in our carriage, but he's saying nothing and is calmly smoking his pipe. He and a couple of other fellows who also have 1 or 2 chevrons on their sleeves are supposed to have come from a convalescent company. They were assigned as senior occupants of each goods wagon by the Transportführer. We take it they are returning to their old units, to which we then might be assigned as replacements. Someone's heard that our unit is an old cavalry division, reformed as a tank division with 2 infantry regiments. The evidence is the yellow piping on our epaulettes. Yellow is the traditional color of this former cavalry outfit, which has been in the Stalingrad area for a while. I don't attach any significance to this rumor. We'll wait and see. Of the 16 men in our wagon, only 6 besides me are from our training company. I only know the others by sight. There is Hans Weitschert, who is always hungry. Next, there is a tall fellow called Warius, the flankman of the training company. Then there is Kupper, a muscular fellow with fair hair. The 4th man is a quiet, sensible chap called Grommel. Then there is Heinz Kurat, who plays the harmonica. The last man, Otto Wilke, uses every free moment to play cards. Even as I write, he is engrossed in a game with some of the others. I think back to the days I spent in the training camp, where in spite of the physically demanding work I did, enjoy some good times. I think about our strolls through Insterburg and the time spent at the dance cafe Tivoli, where you could sometimes get to meet a girl. I admit I was a bit shy on these occasions and even blushed in front of girls, but I used to explain this away by using various slick excuses. I had no close friends at the time. I suppose I was a bit selective. 19th October. It's Sunday, but you'd never know it. It was a bit fresh during the night, but now, since sunrise, it has got warmer in here. Outside, the countryside is drifting past us. It looks a poor sort of area. Everywhere you look, you see wooden houses and dilapidation. We pass through some little villages, and you can see farm buildings with thatched roofs and broken-down brick buildings in many places. There are some people at the next station, standing on the rails and on the platforms. In amongst them are some Wehrmacht uniforms. They look like guards. Some of us wave from the wagon, but no one waves back. Our train is moving very slowly, and the figures in front are staring at us. There are a lot of women among them. They have headscarves on, while the men all have peaked caps. They must be Poles. They look very downcast. They have shovels and picks for working on the railway line. At some of the main stops we're given hot coffee and occasionally fresh sausage. We are slowly getting tired of canned meat. We also find time to wash and freshen up a bit. We don't know exactly where we are, but last night we're supposed to have crossed into Russia. In the early hours of the morning, we suddenly hear rifle shots coming from the front of the train. The train stops, and an alert is sounded. Partisans are supposed to be around here somewhere. They get quite interested in goods trains. But everything remains calm. 23rd of October. Day after day, the wide expanses of Russia pass by. There are harvested fields as far as the eye can see, and in between some huge barns and farmsteads, the so-called kolkhozes. In the distance, I can see a group of figures marching in a long row. As they come closer, I can see that they are mostly women, loaded down with bundles. Some men are walking along carrying nothing. Hans Weichert gets annoyed with the men for allowing the women to carry the heavy loads while they just walk along beside them. Our wagon chief, the Obergefreiter, explains, "In this part of Russia, that's normal. The payenkas, the girls, and the matkas, the mothers or women, are from childhood taught to do what the pan, or man, tells them to do. The men are real layabouts. They decide what's to be done. Whenever you see them, they are always walking alongside the women. Indoors, they are usually to be found lying on the clay ovens asleep. Nowadays, you mostly see only old men. All the youngsters have gone off to the war." In the last few days, our Obergefreiter has become more communicative, and in fact, he turns out to be quite a decent chap. It all started when some of the men called him Herr Obergefreiter. He would tear them off a strip, telling them that we were no longer in training. Besides, addressing someone with hair in front only began when he wore braid on his shoulders, starting with sergeants. "Are we supposed to address you with C?" asks little Grommel. "Don't be daft. Don't use C tome. Just call me plain Kumpel. That's the way we do things around here." "Or comrade," a slim, fair-haired fellow interjected. I don't know him, but he later told me that he was a KOB Kriegsoffizier B Verbers Plus, for which he would first have to prove his aptitude by serving on the front lines. The Obergefreiter raised his hands in protest. "Heavens, not that. That word is better left for the armchair soldiers in the rear echelons or those back home, rather than us frontline blokes. I am sorry, chum, but the comrades all get killed." He then went on to tell us about his unit. It was a former cavalry division which in spring 1942 had been designated a tank division. He had been with it since it was reorganized and transferred to Russia, and he took part in the advance on Voronezh in June. The fighting had ended with many dead and wounded. In July and August, he had fought with his unit past Shir and the Don and on into Stalingrad. So it's Stalingrad after all, just as we had thought. However, we're not that near yet. We're only 7 days into the journey, and the only sensation is one of being shaken up and down. October 30th, 1942. Réveillé is at 0600 and it's still dark outside. We get some hot coffee and food. No one knows for certain what's happening, although there are lots of rumors. One says that we still haven't reached our destination. Another says that this is only one regiment from the division. We'll go from here to our unit in Stalingrad. The unit's strength is reported to have been dramatically cut, and we are the replacements. We're told that the entire regiment doesn't even amount to 2 companies at the moment. Rumors are often the only source of information for the common soldier. Even if they don't exactly fit the facts, there is normally a certain amount of truth in them. I miss Obergefreiter Marzog and the others from the convalescent company at Insterburg. It seems they have already been picked up. Now for us, the usual routine starts up. Fall in, 2 ranks. We line up so that we're always in the second row so that we can stick together, all except for Malzahn. The entire group is 90 men strong. "To the 1st Battalion, Regiment 21, orders a young Oberleutnant. Round about noon, we are picked up by some trucks and 4 Mercedes personnel carriers. The vehicles are all wearing the division's tactical emblem, a leaping rider in a circle. I'm given a seat next to the driver of an 8-man personnel carrier. We set off along an MSR, a wide road packed with traffic. The road is undulating, the surface smooth and shiny like bacon rind, stretching away across the steppe almost in a straight line. Now and then roads branch off, the junctions plastered with unit designation symbols and the names of villages. Rumors are flying, it's no longer certain that we're going to Stalingrad. I ask the driver, who is a Obergefreiter. He says that we are not going to Stalingrad, but rather to a so-called winter position. This is where the baggage trains are situated, because they can no longer be brought into Stalingrad, from which the troops fighting in the northern suburbs of the city are supplied with food and ammunition. 31st October. The winter position is close to a kolkhoz in the open steppe. Along one side there is a Rachel, a deep, often long rectangular trench where the steppe suddenly dips down. These rachels are natural, geological phenomena and are often 10 to 20 feet deep in the otherwise flat landscape. A rachel can be small or large enough to give protection to an entire battalion, complete with vehicles and men. A Hauptwachtmeister, in soldiers' slang also referred to as Spieß or mother of the company, meets us. He informs us that we now belong to a division rich in tradition, which even in the Polish and French campaigns was still a cavalry unit. He explains that the unit is therefore particularly proud of its old cavalry designations. A Feldwebel is called a Wachtmeister, and a company is called a Schwadron, whilst a battalion is called an Abteilung, and a Hauptmann is a Rittmeister. Yes, Herr Hauptwachtmeister, we yell at his question whether we have understood him or not. After one more division, we are 30 men in the first Schwadron, while the others are sectioned off to the other Schwadronen, located quite close to us actually. We are then informed that our Schwadron was fighting with a total strength of only 26 men. Our regiment was also under strength. It was fighting in the ruins of Stalingrad, mostly in small combat units, which because of the scarcity of officers were frequently led by Unteroffiziere. The engagements were said to be murderous. Brick walls were no longer standing and the piles of dead and wounded got higher every day. This news certainly didn't breed enthusiasm. What had happened to all the successes in the reports of the proud German army's advances, the ones we'd heard only few days ago? Were they exaggerations, or was this merely a temporary setback to the usual run of successes? 6 November. Considering the situation, we are all surprised to discover that we are not off to the front immediately. Instead, we have to put up with the normal Army Mickey Mouse routine, salute the officers, stand to attention, take up formation, listen to guff from our leaders, and so on. Even when their training is completed, recruits are only novices and have to prove that they are real soldiers. All well and good, but they should give us the opportunity to prove it. 9 November. The intermittent explosions and general racket from the Stalingrad front are barely audible here. At night, the sky is always red, and the paralights of the Rollbahn UVD+ can often be seen out searching for likely targets. This evening stuff from the stores is being handed out. Each man gets a bottle of juniper brandy, some cigarettes or tobacco, a little chocolate, and some writing materials. When I was 16, I barely survived a bout of alcohol poisoning while on holiday helping a friend bottle cognac for his parents' restaurant. I now throw up if I so much as smell alcohol, so being a heavy smoker, I'm swapping my brandy with some of the non-smokers for extra tobacco or cigarettes. The alcohol brings a bit of atmosphere into our bunker, and after a while, song is in the air again. Grommel and I stay sober because we have to take over the next watch. It's cold and windy, and I'm glad I've got my heavy-lined winter coat. During our march, I cursed it on more than one occasion because of its great weight. I wake Grommel for his shift, and all the rest are sleeping. There is a stench in the bunker that knocks you over, so I let in some fresh air. 11 November. The weather is colder, but at least it stays dry. Overnight, everything has been covered in white frost, like fine filigree. There is movement in the air every day. Our bombers are flying towards Stalingrad. You can pick out the Russian anti-aircraft defense zone from the puffs of smoke in the sky. I am on watch with a friend from our bunker. The supply truck has just returned from Stalingrad, as it does every night. They unload 2 dead and 3 wounded. An Oberwachtmeister is said to be seriously wounded. They're loading the wounded into an ambulance, which will take them to the main medical station. Up to this point, we hadn't seen any dead men. The bodies are always buried in a special spot. I saw all the wooden crosses days ago as we drove by them while on maneuvers. 3 Lancer have come back with the supply truck and are to be reassigned for health reasons. They are told to go to different bunkers, and one of them comes to ours. I return to the bunker after my guard duty and discover that my place on the mattress has been taken. The Lancer from Stalingrad has taken it. I can hardly make out his face. It is covered with beard stubble. His peaked cap almost covers his eyes, and the ear flaps are pulled way down over his ears. He is in a deep sleep, though he doesn't snore. Every now and then he gives a twitch, as if he is having a bad dream. I lie down in Kuret's place. He is the guard who relieved me. 12th November. Today at noon, our sergeant major has taken me off maneuvers and given me a special job. I've got to dig a new latrine because the old one is already full up. The 2 Russian prisoners taken out of Stalingrad a couple of days ago are supposed to help me with this task. This is the first time I have seen Russian soldiers up close, and I look at them with curiosity. In their dirty brown coats and greasy headgear with long ear flaps, they do not look particularly trustworthy. They do not exactly ooze a danger, but rather just give the impression of being more foreign. One seems to be of Mongolian descent. Their faces are unshaven and gray, with restless eyes. I can sense insecurity and apprehension in their faces. I would probably feel the same if I were in their shoes. Both Russians turn out to be quite lazy types. I reckon they are between 25 and 30 years old. I have to chivvy them quite often in order to get work out of them. We have just finished digging, and I am just admiring our work when a Russian standing next to me throws his shovel down and lunges past me directly into the trench. The other leaps after him, and I crouch down thinking, before jumping into the trench as well, landing directly on top of the first Russian. All 3 of us are now flat on our stomachs in the trench and can hear the rattle of aircraft cannon as the shells hit the ground directly above us. Then a shadow, accompanied by a droning noise, which I know all too well, flies sideways over and past us. The Iron Gustav must have crept up on us while coming in low over the kolkhoz. The new latrine is some way away from the rest of the unit. I peer over the edge of the trench towards the bunker and the vehicle dugouts. The Iron Gustav is turning back at low altitude, and he again opens fire with his 2 wing-mounted cannon. He also drops several medium-sized bombs. Then, suddenly, there are 2 more combat aircraft in the sky. They also spew metal from their wing-mounted cannon and drop bombs. The other part of our unit must be over there, or are they firing on the men on maneuvers? Machine guns from all over the place now fire back at the aircraft, and I can also hear the louder bangs from a 20mm anti-aircraft cannon. Sparks are flying from the bellies of the aircraft, just as if someone is doing some welding. Normal bullets bounce off the armor. But suddenly there's a smoke trail. A hit. 1 Iron Gustav peels off, smacks into the step, and bursts into flame. The rest flee. I jump up and head for the bunkers and the vehicles. Except for the men in the orderly room, only a few sick and a couple of drivers have stayed in the bunker. I can see 1 or 2 bomb craters close by the vehicles, some of which have a hole through their side paneling. Petrol is escaping from one of the trucks. The rest of the unit arrives back from maneuvers late in the afternoon. They've heard nothing about an air attack. They were much too far away. Warya says that they were near Karpovka, along the Kalach-Stalingrad railway line. The damage to the bunker is quickly repaired. 13 November. The weather has hardly changed. It's cold and dry. It's supposed to be 15 degrees Celsius or plus 2 degrees Fahrenheit in Stalingrad. The Russians are launching attacks in our unit's sector every day, preceded each time by a big artillery barrage. The attacks have so far been repulsed, but with heavy losses. There are now only 18 men left on the front line from our squadron. The entire regiment has been reorganized into a single combat unit and is moved around to where it is needed most. Hot meals and fresh ammunition arrive more or less on a daily basis. Besides the kitchen wallahs and Unteroffizier Winter, the medical orderly, goes along, plus 2 drivers with their vehicles. 2 volunteers are needed to lug the mess buckets around. Cooper and I volunteered yesterday. The roster goes around from bunker to bunker, and it's now the turn of our 1. The 21st Panzer Grenadier Regiment's war zone in Stalingrad, October-November 1942. It's almost dark when we move off. We've got 1 Steyr 70 MTW personnel carrier with a soft top and a 112-ton Opel Blitz 404 with a tarpaulin cover. We drive off into the dusk with our lights dimmed. The kitchen wallah knows the way, but he says that there can be no talk about a Hauptkampflinie in Stalingrad as amidst all the ruins the front shifts Hoher by Hour. Not long ago our line lay north of the tractor factory, but as of yesterday it is apparently further to the south in a sector known as the tennis racket. The Russians are supposed to have a chemical factory there which they are defending, and so they have set up a bridgehead. We need to ask for directions, Unteroffizier Winter says to us. Well then, let's go. We can only hope that we find them soon. We are now driving purely by the light of the moon on an MSR. Traffic comes towards us and also overtakes. To the right is the railway line running from Kalach to Stalingrad. Just beyond Woroponovo station, we turn off to the left, and after a few kilometers, we're already well inside the ruins of the city. We drive through shallow craters and over heaps of rubble, avoiding debris and overturned telegraph poles. Thick, acrid smoke from smoldering fires chokes our lungs. To the left and right are burnt-out wrecks of various bits of military equipment. Our driver zigzags slowly towards what looks like a small forest or park. We are now standing on top of a small hill and can see something of the city. More black smoke and smoldering fires. A terrible sight. And we can feel Stalingrad's hot breath. This must be how Rome looked after Nero put it to the torch. The only difference is that here, the inferno is made worse by the screaming shells and lethal explosions, increasing the madness and giving the onlooker the impression that he's witnessing the end of the world. The further we penetrate into the city, the closer the shells fall around us. "The usual evening blessing from Ivan," remarks the medic. It was supposed to sound lighthearted, but it falls flat. He is sitting cowering on ammunition boxes, as I am. My heart is hammering in my throat. Fright has gripped me. Now there is a new noise in the air, like the rush of 1,000 wings. It is increasing in intensity and seems to be coming directly at us. "Get out! It's the Stalingrad!" yells the medic. We jump out of the wagon and dive for safety underneath a large burnt-out tractor. The rushing noise passes us, and then the explosions rain down around us just like fireworks. A splinter the size of a man's hand spins by my head and hits the ground beside Cooper. "That was a bit of luck," says the medic. Behind us we hear yells and cries for the medic. "Someone from the anti-aircraft position must have been hit. That's the one we drove by," says Unteroffizier Winter, who has just jumped into a hole. "Come on, let's go. We've got to get on." We climb back onto the vehicles. The medic says that the Stalingrad is a primitive rocket launcher, mounted on the back of an open truck. The rockets are fired electrically. They can't hit a precise target, but by using this weapon, Ivan can saturate a large area of ground, and God help those who find themselves inside it without any shelter. We are now driving very carefully. Many places have had to be thoroughly cleared so that vehicles can get through the wreckage. We meet other vehicles who seem to have the same idea as we do. Many of them are loading up with wounded and dead. They can only do this at nighttime, when, in theory, the Russians can't see what's going on. But the enemy does know what's going on, and he is pulverizing the area with his artillery and other big guns. There are always some Nähmaschinen in the air. We can often see these biplanes quite clearly, silhouetted against the fiery glow in the sky. Tracer rounds climb high into the sky, and in front of us we can hear the rattle of machine gun fire. I can tell it's Russian fire by the sound. Hand grenades are going off and we can hear yelling, so we come to a halt amidst the ruins. Winter disappears, returning some minutes later. "Our people are supposed to be in the same area they were in yesterday," he says. "We'll move in as close to them as we can, and then we'll have to carry the stuff the rest of the way." The vehicles move off again, gingerly, a yard at a time. I can see 2 burnt-out Russian T-34 tanks. We pass them and come up to a large building with big open spaces like a factory. In the background, standing out against the glow of the fire and rising out of the ruins, is a tall chimney, looking for all the world like a threatening finger, pointing up to the sky. We pull up in the shadow of the factory. We start to unload, but Russian artillery shells are falling precisely where we want to go. Some of them land pretty close to us as well. A fire flares behind us. A vehicle has been hit. There is another big blaze nearby, probably a petrol dump or something like that. We wait, all ready to go. There are craters in front of us, lumps of stone and piles of debris, and between the screams of artillery shells and the thunderous roar as they explode, I get goose pimples. We move in zigzags, clambering over stones and beams, stumble, lie flat on the ground, get up again, and continue on. "Stay close together," croaks Winter. In the glare of a fire, I can see men running. Then some hand grenades go off. Several figures run past us, bent double. Winter gets up and speaks to them. I can recognize an officer's uniform. "We've got to move further over to the right," he says afterwards. "A couple of hours ago, they threw Ivan out of this area. Now there's hell to pay because he wants to take it back." We creep carefully forward. Then we come to an open space littered with clods of earth and concrete blocks with iron rods sticking out. This was perhaps once a bunker, destroyed by our bombs. A long wall rises at the other end. 3 pillars are still standing. They are supposed to be there somewhere, says Winter, pointing to the wall. We can't go any further. Ivan is firing like mad at the churned-up ground which we have to cross. Has he spotted us yet? We crouch down behind the concrete blocks, but the shells are landing so close to us that I can sense the hot metal on my face and can feel the muscles on my back cramping up. In front of us, tracer bullets shoot up into the sky. Rifles and machine guns crackle. Is Ivan on the attack? The shooting gradually dies away. Go, now, to the wall. It's Winter barking out his orders. We run through the confusion of rubble, wire, and lumps of iron. We can't see anybody. We slither along the wall and come to a basement entrance. Suddenly, there's a shout from somewhere, as if from the grave. Hey, mate, get out of here. What do you want to do? Bring Ivan down on our heads? A steel helmet sticks up from the ruins. We're looking for our unit, I hear Winter whisper. Which one? Winter tells him. No idea. We don't belong to that crowd. But if you're looking for the ones who chased Ivan out of here this morning, you'll find them about 50 meters further to the right in that large factory building. But get out of here, and thank your lucky stars it's quiet at the moment. The head with the steel helmet disappears again. He calls this quiet? We hardly dare lift our heads out of the dirt. During a short lull, we stumble on, pieces of broken glass crackling under our feet, shadows springing out of the ruins. Immediately, tracer bullets zip towards us and bursts of machine gun fire hit the wreckage all around like a hailstorm. We hurry onwards, the mess buckets clattering against the blocks of concrete. A shadow appears beside us. Are you the supply blokes from the 1st Squadron? Comes the question out of the darkness. Is that you, Domscheit? Winter demands in return. Yep, I've been waiting for you for 2 hours to show you the way. Are we relieved? Domscheit is an Obergefreiter. He tells us that they carried out a counterattack this morning and are now positioned a bit further forward in the factory building. Winter swears. Every time we come, you are somewhere else. One day we'll probably deliver these supplies straight to Ivan. Oh, that's been done before, says Domscheit. Last night, 4 men from the 74th Infantry Division walked right into Ivan's hands, with food and ammunition. During the counterattack this morning, only empty containers were found. There was no sign of the men. We creep behind Domscheit, tracer whizzing in from both sides. I stumble and bang a metal strut with my canteen, making an awful row. Immediately, a Russian machine gunner opens up and a strip of tracer bullets lights up the night. Ivan is pretty close. We lie down flat. The shots sing over my head and explode against the concrete block. The chalky spray drizzles down my neck, mixing with my sweat. I roll forward and pull the 2 mess buckets behind the block. Cooper has also let go of his mess bucket and is hauling it to safety. He is lying a couple of paces further forward, next to a protective wall. I want to catch him up, and I take a pace forward, only to fall into emptiness. Hands grab me and pull me up. Hang on, says a deep voice. And then, where did you come from so suddenly? We were just about to fire on you. You were bloody lucky. Domscheit tells them. Christ, do you have to use this particular street? We've got Ivan sitting right on our backs here. I came by here just 2 hours ago, and Ivan was further forward, Domscheit says. Yes, but in the last hour, not so. Max, do you have your sprayer ready? Asks the low voice. Of course, as always, comes the answer. Good, then we'll give you covering fire. You can get through behind us, across the street. Now, off with you. On their first burst of fire, we dash off. Cooper is faster than me and nearly pulls my arm out of its socket because I'm still holding onto the other handle of the food container. Ivan shoots wildly back. Then the artillery opens up. In between, I can also hear the thud of the mortars. The rounds loop towards us and explode all around. The bombardment seems to go for us like a wild animal, and we squeeze together in a bombed-out basement. I duck further down with each explosion, expecting the basement to collapse any moment and bury the lot of us. The earth above shakes. Just like in an earthquake, I should think. My nerves are aflutter. I'd never imagined I could be so terrified. You can't do anything, not a thing. The only solution might actually be to get out and run. But where? The only advantage is that death will come more quickly. For heaven's sake, they are forever going on about the proud, successful German advances in the army news bulletins, but here in Stalingrad, I haven't seen anything of that. The only thing I understand is that we are holed up in these ruins like cowering rats, fighting for our lives. But what else can we do, given the Russian superiority? The driver and the medic are sitting next to me, with Winter and Cooper on the other side. Cooper is as white as a sheet, and we are all staring at the ceiling, which already has a huge number of cracks. Domscheit has the strongest nerves. He is standing by the entrance, staring out into the darkness. As far as Cooper and I are concerned, these few hours in Stalingrad have certainly dampened down our enthusiasm for war, and we haven't yet had any personal contact, as it is so nicely put. My thoughts now are concentrated solely on how and when we're going to be able to get out of here safely. We've been in this god-awful heap of ruins for hours, and we still haven't reached our unit. Domscheit tells us from his position at the entrance that Ivan is shooting at the slightest thing. Because our machine guns opened up, Ivan probably thought we were mounting another attack and wanted to make quite sure that it was nipped in the bud. If only he knew that we are quite happy, keeping our heads down for the moment, until we get our replacements, that is, says Domscheit. We're supposed to be replaced by fresh troops, according to our Wachtmeister. He who believes is indeed blessed, murmurs the medic. Finally, the barrage is lifted, after what seems to me like an eternity. We jump up. Domscheit knows the way. He makes for a ruined factory building, knowing that someone has been lying there under cover, watching everything. Softly, he calls out the code word while we are still some distance away, and gives his name. We go to a basement entrance, which is half covered by wreckage. Domscheit leads us through a corridor to a room where, in front of the doorway, an iron plate has been placed. I can see 2 Hindenburg lanterns, which provide just enough light to clear the darkness in the room. Domscheit makes a droll introduction. May I present our new battle headquarters? A heap of sacks and a few rags are strewn on the ground, and lying on top of them, curled up, are 2 Lanzer. Another one is sitting on a couple of stacked-up ammunition boxes. Startled by the noise we have made, the 2 Lanzer jump up and help us into the room with our containers. Both men appear to be very tired, and who knows when they might next get some sleep. I can barely distinguish their faces under all the dirt and stubble. But I guess we all look about the same. Then a Wachtmeister comes in. He says hello and offers his hand to Weikert. I recognize him. He's the one who pushed the old Russian fellow's head into the bucket at the well. He tells Winter that the one remaining officer in the group became a casualty this morning, and that now he was in charge of this sector. The men are positioned in front of and to the side of this area, hidden in the ruins. The fighting ebbs back and forth, and no one really knows where the Hauptkampflinie really runs. Casualties today are 1 dead and 2 wounded, and they're already on the way to the main medical center. This is the craziest place imaginable. The Russians are often only 20 or 30 meters away, sometimes at hand grenade range in front of us. No more than 200 meters in front of us, there is a deep trench, and this trench leads right down to the banks of the Volga. From there, Ivan gets reinforcements every night. For days now, we've all been waiting impatiently to be relieved, or at least to receive reinforcements, but we're beginning to doubt whether they'll ever come. This last sentence is only whispered to Winter, but with my sharp ears I still understand what he has said. So they've got their doubts. That makes me think. The warm food and the coffee must by now be frozen solid, even though the containers have double skins and are supposed to be insulated. Winter has brought a fair supply of solid methylated spirits along, and a solid fuel burner to heat up the food. The food is ice cold, but not frozen solid. It's a good thick noodle soup with lots of canned beef. Much better than what we get in the bunkers. These men have more than earned these decent rations. Winter is pressing for us to start getting back. An hour has passed since we left our bunker. The Wachtmeister needs more ammunition, which we've got on the trucks. He details 5 men to go with use. On the way there, the Russians lob more heavy shells into the area. We run after the lead soldier at the double and stop only briefly each time a large shell lands nearby. We jump up on the trucks and sit on the empty ammunition boxes. The dead soldier we are taking back with us lies in the front. in his body bag. There is supposed to be another road we can take going back. The driver says that the route across the village of Petchanka and past another kolkhoz to Vavirovka is shorter going from here. Because of the frost, all the roads are quite passable. But first we have to work our way through the ruins. Every now and then, the vehicles drive down into a trench and come up the other side, and we're catapulted towards the back and have to hang on to the tailgate. The ammo box is sliding after us and slamming into our jackboots. Just keep going, I think. Just get out of here. When it all starts up again, we need to be well out of range. We go through another deep trench and have to help push the truck back out again. We pass several other vehicles, and some VW Jeeps with officers as passengers pass us. The MSR is rough, but hard and solid. "How far is it now?" I ask the medic, who is looking back at us from up front through a slit in the tarpaulin. "Just a few kilometers," I hear him saying. At that moment, we all hear a thundering noise, as though the world were going split apart at any moment. I slide hastily towards the back and release part of the tarpaulin. I see a frightful spectacle, one that makes me cringe. Cooper joins me and stares open-mouthed. It would be a beautiful sight were it not for the sinister roaring and the continuous explosions, which make you realize that thousands of lives are being sacrificed. The sky is glowing over Stalingrad. Grayish-white smoke billows from the ground. Flames shoot high into the sky in between. The long probing fingers of the searchlights tear at the half-darkness of the breaking day. There must be a lot of aircraft up. Bombs are ceaselessly raining down on a city that has been condemned to death. The explosions merge into one another, creating a devastating inferno. Tracer patterns from the anti-aircraft guns climb high into the sky for kilometers around. 2 aircraft explode over the hellish fires and are swallowed up by them. This is absolutely crazy. No one can survive this. And yet, even in this inferno, some are managing to stay alive. Not only that, they are defending themselves and fighting back. The proof is that, after every bombardment, the enemy counterattacks once more and sometimes even gains a bit of ground, although usually he is stopped in his tracks and pushed back to where he started from. This is the way it has been since the beginning of September, ever since German troops forced their way into the city. But because of the strong defenses along the Volga, the Germans have now been obliged to hide in the ruins. When we return to the bunkers, it is full daylight. We can hear only a fair-off droning noise, just as before. But for me, it is no longer the same. I now see the disaster that will come out of this hapless city. It is a stark warning to everyone languishing in the rear areas, wasting their time by making their quarters comfortable for the winter.